Imagine you wake up, polish off an important report, and send it directly to your boss. Hours tick by. No reply. By lunchtime, your brain starts writing a script. He is ignoring you. You did something wrong. By 5 o'clock, you are absolutely convinced he is plotting to fire you. Then he walks in the next morning and apologizes because he dropped his phone into a pool. The entire malicious plot you imagined evaporates instantly. Why does the human mind do this? When faced with a gap in information, why do we automatically default to a story where someone is actively out to get us? This brings us to a mental model known as Hanlon's razor. It states that you should never attribute to malice what can reasonably be explained by ignorance, mistake, or incompetence. It acts as a mental filter. This philosophical tool functions as a necessary corrective for a deeply ingrained flaw in our biological programming. To understand that flaw, we have to look back at human evolution. Early human survival depended on the ability to rapidly assess risk in highly ambiguous environments. If our ancestors heard movement in the brush, they had a split second to decide if it was wind or a predator preparing to strike. The math of survival was simple. If you assume a predator is waiting and you are wrong, you lose nothing. If you assume it is just the wind and you are wrong, you die. As a result, we evolved a hyperactive intent detector. That instinct kept early humans alive. Today, it causes us to hallucinate hostile intentions in the middle of an office building, reacting to unreturned emails as if they were hidden predators. This ancestral paranoia is powerfully amplified in our modern daily lives by a cognitive bias called the fundamental attribution error. When someone else messes up, say cutting you off in traffic, our brains draw a straight line from their mistake to a character flaw. But when we make the exact same mistake, we ignore character flaws and blame external circumstances, like being distracted. Because we are only ever fully aware of our own environmental pressures, the ordinary clumsy mistakes of other people will consistently feel like targeted attacks. This bias scales up from individual interactions to entire systems. Think of a delayed flight or a massive bureaucratic bottleneck. An iceberg diagram illustrates the gap between the friction we experience and its actual cause. The visible outcome, a canceled flight, is this tiny top section. We see it and assume malice, missing the massive submerged structure, cascading communication breakdowns, bad planning, and human exhaustion. The majority of friction in our lives comes from the crushing weight of these ordinary limitations colliding in an increasingly complex world. This model has clear boundaries. Malice, fraud, and intentional abuse are real, and Hanlon's razor only functions as a guide for uncertainty. Incompetence can inflict just as much damage as intentional harm. The consequences are real. But if you want to actually solve the problem, you have to correctly diagnose the true intent behind it. In our hyper-connected world, instant communication features like read receipts create constant gaps in information. It is incredibly easy to stare at a silent screen and interpret that silence as a personal attack. Hanlon's razor gives you the power to pause. It short-circuits that evolutionary panic, stopping you from escalating a conflict or retaliating against a threat that isn't actually there. True discipline means waiting for the evidence before assigning a villain to a frustrating situation.